There's a phrase often tossed around in both science and magic: what you focus on grows. In neuroscience, that's neuroplasticity. In magic, it's intent. And the deeper you look, the more it becomes clear that the two aren't separate worlds at all. They're mirrors of one another. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change its structure and function through experience. It's what allows us to learn, to heal, to adapt, and to reshape how we perceive the world. Magic, at its core, is the art of changing consciousness at will. If you put those side by side, the overlap becomes undeniable. Both are about deliberate transformation of mind and reality through focused will and repetition. If you're enjoying the content and want to help me keep creating more videos like this, consider joining my Patreon. Your support there makes a real difference. It helps keep the channel going and gives you access to extra content and behind the scenes stuff. You'll find the link in the description, and thanks for being part of this journey. For most of history, people thought the brain was static, that by adulthood its pathways were set in stone, but neuroscience overturned that idea completely. We now know that every thought, every emotion, and action etches patterns into the neural landscape, strengthening some connections while weakening others. Your brain is a living grimoire, a constantly rewritten book of spells, and every thought is an incantation. When magicians talk about training the mind or raising power or directing energy, what's really happening beneath the surface is the deliberate cultivation of neural networks. Ritual, repetition, and symbolic focus create strong pathways of association. Over time, those networks begin to shape perception, emotion, and behavior automatically. What began as a conscious act of will becomes a natural mode of being, a rewired reality. This is the essence of both magical practice and neuroplasticity, the recognition that consciousness is malleable. You are not a fixed entity, you are a process in motion, constantly rewriting yourself. Consider a simple magical act, lighting a candle for focus and intention. The act may seem symbolic, but neurologically, it's doing something profound. You're creating a ritual container, a specific context that signals the brain to enter a heightened state of awareness. The smell of the wax, the flicker of the flame, the words you speak, these are sensory anchors that tell your nervous system, this is sacred time, pay attention. Every repetition strengthens that network. The brain begins to associate the act of lighting a candle with focus, presence, and spiritual connection. Soon, just striking the match can bring you into that altered state. That's neuroplasticity at work, the transformation of external ritual into internal wiring. This is why consistent practice matters. A one-off spell might bring a burst of clarity or luck, but lasting transformation, whether in magic or mundane life, depends on repetition. The brain learns through pattern and reinforcement. In magical language, we might say that repeated ritual builds an egregore of power. In neuroscience, we'd say it strengthens synaptic connections. Different languages, same principle. Belief is one of the most potent forces in magic, and neuroplasticity shows why. What we believe literally changes how the brain processes information. The placebo effect is the most well-documented example. People given a sugar pill but told it's medicine often experience real physiological healing. Their belief changes their biology. In magic, belief is the mechanism by which imagination becomes reality. When you cast a spell, invoke a spirit, or visualize a desired outcome, you're engaging the same systems that govern placebo and expectation. The brain releases chemicals, alters perception, and adjusts behavior in line with what it believes to be true. Over time, Those internal shifts influence the external world, not because reality is an illusion, but it is, but because perception is the filter through which all experience is constructed. From a neurological perspective, magic isn't about breaking natural laws, it's about using them consciously. Belief shapes perception, perception shapes behavior, and behavior shapes the world we live in. That chain of transformation is neuroplasticity's territory, and magicians have been hacking it for millennia. Words are spells. Every culture that's practiced magic has understood this intuitively, and now neuroscience is catching up. The words we use shape the neural circuits of thought and emotion. When we repeat affirmations, mantras, or ends, we're not just speaking, we're reprogramming. Sigils function on a similar principle. When a magician creates a sigil and charges it with intent, they're condensing an idea into a single symbolic form. The brain's pattern recognition system locks onto that image, embedding it deep into the subconscious. Once it's lodged there, the symbol begins to influence perception and action from below the level of conscious thought, exactly how deeply ingrained habits work. You could say that magical symbols are like executable files for your mind. They run scripts in the brain that alter states, expectations, and ultimately outcomes. Neuroplasticity provides the framework through which those scripts are installed and maintained. Attention is currency in both magic and neuroscience. Where attention goes, energy flows. That's not just poetic, it's neurological fact. Focused attention strengthens neural connections, while neglect weakens them. This is Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together wire together. When you hold your attention on a sigil, a deity, or a desired outcome, you're firing the neurons associated with that concept. The more often you do it, the stronger those pathways become. Eventually, the focus becomes effortless. You've hardwired it into your consciousness. Distraction, by contrast, scatters power. Each time attention is pulled away, energy dissipates across multiple neural networks. This is why meditation and mindfulness are so central to magical training. They teach you to hold attention steady, to become the sculptor of your own awareness rather than a passenger of automatic thought. In practice, every act of magic, from a candle spell to a complex invocation, is an exercise in neuroplasticity. You're training your brain to enter and sustain specific states of consciousness, to hold intent clearly, and to reshape your internal world so it mirrors your will. One of the most fascinating overlaps between neuroscience and magic lies in what's called the default mode network, or DMN for short. This is the system of the brain that creates your sense of I. It's the voice that narrates, judges, and compares, the inner monologue of the self. When we meditate, enter trance, or engage in deep ritual, the DMN quiets down. In its place arises what mystics have called the higher self, the daemon, or the God within. When the DMN deactivates, the brain's boundaries loosen. New connections form between areas that don't normally communicate. The result is heightened creativity, mystical experience, and profound insight. You feel connected to something larger because neurologically you are. The rigid I dissolves, allowing the brain to reorganize itself in more fluid and expansive ways. Ritual, prayer, chanting, drumming, dancing, all of these methods induce states where the DMN quiets and the rest of the brain synchronizes. From a magical perspective, this is communication with spirit. From a neuroscientific one, it's large scale neural rewiring. A bit of a tongue twister there. The two are not contradictory, they're actually describing the same phenomenon through two different lenses. Neuroplasticity also sheds light on shadow work, the process of confronting and integrating suppressed aspects of your psyche. Trauma and conditioning create neural pathways that trigger fear, shame, or avoidance. Those patterns become self-reinforcing loops. To change them, you must first bring them into awareness. Jung called it integration. Neuroscience calls it reconsolidation. When a memory or emotional pattern is reactivated in a safe and conscious setting, it becomes malleable. Through ritual, meditation, or therapy, you can introduce new information, compassion, understanding, or empowerment, and the brain will literally rewire the memory's neural signature. What once triggered fear now evokes strength. This is why magical shadow work is so transformative. When done consciously, it isn't just emotional healing, it's neural reprogramming. You're reclaiming control over the circuitry that governs how you think, feel, and respond to life. One of the great ironies of both magic and neuroscience is that freedom requires discipline. The more consistent your practice, the greater your neural momentum. Each repetition of meditation, ritual, or mantra strengthens the same pathways until they become your new baseline. What once required effort becomes automatic grace. This is what mystics have always meant by alignment with will. It's not about control in the tyrannical sense, but about coherence, the whole being moving in one direction. Neuroplasticity rewards that coherence. The brain loves patterns, it thrives on consistency. So every act of daily devotion, every breath of mindfulness, every sigil drawn and forgotten is a stroke of the chisel shaping your inner architecture. When your inner world is coherent, your outer world follows. The magic begins to move without conscious strain because you've become the spell itself. Now, some magicians take neuroplasticity to mean that magic is purely psychological, that it happens in the mind, but this is a false dichotomy. Consciousness is not sealed inside the skull. The brain is a receiver and generator of patterns that extend into the field of experience. Change the pattern inside, and the world reorganizes to match it, not metaphorically, but systematically. In chaos theory and quantum mechanics, we see that systems are sensitive to initial conditions. Tiny shifts in input can create large ripples through complex networks. Human consciousness, being part of that network, participates in that process. Neuroplasticity is the biological interface through which consciousness interacts with matter. When we alter our neural patterns, we alter the informational substrate of the reality we inhabit. In magical terms, you might say that the brain is the wand through which the will shapes the world. It's not that thought alone moves mountains, but that aligned thought, emotion, and action, rooted in a rewired consciousness, generate new patterns in the field of probability. The world reflects the mind because both are made of the same mutable substance. So, how do we apply this practically? Start with three pillars: awareness, repetition, and embodiment. Awareness is the magician's mirror. You must first observe your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without judgment. See where your attention goes, what stories you tell yourself, and what states you dwell in. Every one of those is a neural pattern. Awareness alone begins to loosen them. Repetition is the key that unlocks transformation. Choose a practice: meditation, sigil work, affirmations, ritual visualization, and do it consistently. Don't chase intensity, chase consistency. The brain changes through small, repeated signals. That's why daily practice, even 5 minutes, rewires you more effectively than occasional deep dives. Embodiment grounds the transformation. Move, breathe, speak. Act as though your desired reality already exists. The body is part of the brain. Movement and posture reinforce neural pathways. When you walk like a magician, speak like one, and live as one, Your entire system reorganizes around that identity. You become the living talisman of your will. Every magician is, in truth, a neuro-architect. Through ritual, symbol, and discipline, you are shaping the infrastructure of consciousness. You're teaching the brain to perceive new dimensions of reality, to hold paradox, to engage with the unseen. Over time, this rewiring becomes irreversible. You begin to see connections others miss, to feel energy others overlook, to move through the world as both participant and creator. Neuroplasticity isn't just a scientific curiosity, it's the biological foundation of the great work. The alchemists sought to transmute lead into gold, but the true transmutation happens in the nervous system. Leaden habits of thought become golden awareness. Fixed patterns dissolve into freedom. The magician who understands this no longer wonders if magic works, but how deeply they are willing to rewire themselves to become it. To wrap it all up, magic and neuroplasticity are not opposing worldviews. They are different languages describing the same process, the evolution of consciousness. The magician changes reality through will and symbol. The neuroscientist describes the same process in terms of neurons and synapses. Both are studying transformation. To practice magic, then, is to participate consciously in your own evolution. Each spell, each meditation, each act of devotion or rebellion is a neural sculpting, a deliberate rewiring of the code that defines who you are and how you engage the world. You are not a static being. You are a fluid nexus of awareness, energy, and biology, constantly remaking itself in the image of its deepest will. The brain is the cauldron, consciousness the fire, and magic the art of stirring both into a new form. And when you grasp that, meaning when you realize that every thought, word, and ritual is a line of code rewriting the neural and cosmic matrix, you see magic for what it truly is, the sacred technology of transformation. Right, that brings us to the end of today's little video, and I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.